What's up, monster makers? My name is Shar, and I'm a professional special effects makeup artist. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how to make this realistic wound effect with an encapsulated silicone prosthetic. There are a lot of steps that go into making this prosthetic, so please be sure to watch the video in its entirety first, and take good note of the safety precautions and the materials that you'll need before getting started. We'll be covering the sculpting, molding, casting. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the comments below or send me an email. Okay, no time to waste. Let's get into the video. And we're starting off by warming up the monster clay. I'm using a heat gun here. I'm also warming up the tile that I'm sculpting on so that the clay adheres nicely. I'll start smoothing down those edges with my fingers. And I'll go in with a large rake tool and start to take down some of the bulk of the clay. Again, with my rake tool, I'm just refining that shape and blending out those edges. It's so important to have good reference material when you're sculpting. I'll be using this special effects book of real wounds for my reference. You can find this on Amazon and I'll link it down below. Once I have that basic shape blocked out, I'm going to go in and start to carve out the wound. In this case, I'm going to have some stitches at the bottom and more of an open wound in the middle and the top. I'm now going in and carving out some depth and dimension for the wound. After doing so, I am carrying on that taper along those edges. I decided I wanted to have a deeper end of the cut, so I added a little bit of clay there to the end and blended that out. I lost a small segment of footage here, so what you won't see is me reducing the area of clay around the wound, as well as adding some muscly texture inside. I did that by adding some bits of monster clay and then softening them up with mineral spirits. I'm pushing down and in with the back of one of my sculpting tools. This is going to create the illusion of the stitches pulling down and in towards the wound. I'm refining the edges so they're nice and soft. I decided to go in and add even a little more depth to the spot where the stitches will be entering the prosthetic. Next, I'm going to be going in with some mineral spirits and a soft brush, and I'm going to be smoothing out the texture of the entire sculpt. And now I'm going to take a pour tool and a plastic bag, and I'm going to add some pour texture back in over the entire sculpt. It's important to think about where you're going to be placing the prosthetic to determine how much texture of pores that you'll need. The inner forearm and the kneecap would need different texture to look realistic. I decided I wanted a little more clay on the one side of the wound, so you'll see me adding that here, as well as going in with the mineral spirits and texture tool, just like I did for the rest of the sculpt. For the next step, we'll be creating our flashing with monster clay. For this method, I like to roll out the monster clay nice and thin, and then flatten it out. Now that you have your flashing, we're going to place it around the sculpture 1/4 inch from the edge of the sculpture. Make sure to follow precisely around the edge and keep that same distance throughout. You'll see me using this tool here to really press down the flashing, as well as clean up where I've connected the pieces together. The last step of the flashing is to create an angle along the sides. This will ensure we don't have any undercuts. Now we're moving on to making the mold wall. For this, I'm using Sculpting's medium and a clay cutter to get 2 perfect pieces for my mold wall. There are many ways to make a mold wall. This is my favorite because it's clean and efficient, and I can easily reuse the clay for my next sculpture. I'm scoring the edges of the clay to make them easier to adhere to each other. When deciding the shape and size of your mold wall, keep in mind that you only want to go about 1/2 of an inch, but definitely no more than 1 inch away from the edge of your flashing. This will help to keep the cost of materials down and avoid any waste. I'll finish it off with a few layers of ease release. The next step is to prepare our silicone for the mold. I'm using Mold Max 30 and latex-free gloves. Now we will determine how much silicone we need to make our mold. This step is super important as it will help you save money on costly materials. I'm using a digital scale to weigh out the amount of part A and part B that I need. When doing your calculations, note that you'll need about 1 inch of silicone above the sculpture for a good mold. Once it's well mixed, we're ready to pour the silicone. When pouring the silicone, we're going to hold the bucket up nice and high away from the sculpture and pour a thin, slow stream. You'll want to stay moving around a bit while you pour, and this method will help to ensure that we don't trap any air bubbles. Once the silicone is fully cured, we're ready for demolding. Cleaning the clay off the outside and inside of the mold, and it's ready to go. Let's take a moment to talk about today's video sponsor. Narrative Cosmetics manufactures and sells professional-grade, production-ready, theatrical, and special effects cosmetics at an affordable price without sacrificing quality. Their products are suitable for beginners and professionals alike. In this video, I use their new skin tone alcohol palettes, as well as their acetone-based encapsulator, alcohol-based blood, and my fave, the special effects brushes. I thoroughly enjoyed using these products, and I highly recommend that you check them out. Let's get started with the casting. I'm going to be using Dragon Skin FX Pro, as well as some flocking and Silpig for coloring. For these next few steps, you'll want to be in a well-ventilated area and or using a respirator. I'll do a few coats of ease release, waiting at least 5 minutes in between each coat. Now I'm going to be taking a mixture of my acetone-based encapsulator from Narrative Cosmetics and acetone. I'll do about a 60-40 mixture with 60% being acetone. You can either brush on or airbrush your encapsulator. In this case, I choose a chip brush, making sure to apply nice, thin, even layers across the entire top of the mold. In total, I did about 5 coats. Using a sculpting tool just to check that the thickness is correct. Now we're ready to set up our silicone. I'm going to weigh out part A and part B and pre-mix both parts separately. You can take the monster clay from your sculpture and press it down into a graduated mixing cup like this to see the total amount of silicone you'll need. I'm going ahead and adding in the flocking to my part A, as well as my Silpig flesh. You only need a little bit of both of these products. Start with a small amount and add as needed. Remember, mixing your part A and B together will dilute the pigment. Once the silicone's all mixed up together, we're ready to pour it into the mold. We want to try and do that high pour process again like we did when we made the mold. I ran out of room here, so unfortunately I didn't get to do that. We'll take a tongue depressor and smooth that silicone into the mold. Being careful not to press too hard, but also making sure to not have any excess silicone. Now I'm going in and taking a Q-tip between the edge of the sculpture and the flashing and taking away any silicone on that edge. This will be your blending edge, so this step is crucial. If there's any silicone here, when you remove the encapsulator, it will show and it will make an icky edge. Once your silicone is fully cured, we're going to go in with another couple layers of that acetone and encapsulator mixture. I think I did about 3 or 4, again, being thin and even with your layers. And now it's time to demold. I'm using RCMA powder, but you can use baby powder. Lifting up the edge of the cat plastic and taking a chip brush and slowly working the powder in and removing the prosthetic. Once it's demolded, the fabrication is complete, and our prosthetic is ready for application. Be sure to check out part 2 of this video series to see how I applied this makeup. If you're interested in jumping right in and following along with the application, you can buy one of these prosthetics right now in a limited release at narrativecosmetics.com. Thanks so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it or that maybe you learned something. If you have any questions at all about what you saw in this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you could get a second to leave a like or maybe even subscribe, that would help me out so much. You can also follow me on my social medias, Instagram, as well as TikTok. I'm ScreamQueenFX. That's all I have for today. Catch you later, Monster Maker. Bye!